Oh, hello, and welcome to It at Home. My name is Michael Thompson, and today we're going to be taking you through our pairing of Chopin's first Ballade and a really gorgeous Chocolate Ganache Tart. Now, the music of Chopin has always been known for having really indulgent melodies, and so pairing it with a rich chocolate is almost a little dangerous. That being said, you can really taste the crunch of the almonds, the weight of the chocolate, and the little sarcastic tickle that the salt adds to the top. This is a great recipe to try at home because it's super simple, very easy, and it's great to share with your family and your friends. I'm going to turn things over to Hayden, who's going to walk you through step by step what it takes to make this recipe, and hopefully answer any questions that you have along the way. Afterwards, I'll be back to guide you through the pairing so you can get the most out of your Una experience.
Hello and welcome to Una at Home. Today we're going to be making a chocolate ganache tart. This is a recipe that I found on bonappetit.com. So the first thing we're going to do is just take a stick of butter and butter our pie dish or tart pan. The recipe asks for a tart pan with a removable base, and if you have one, by all means use it and use the parchment paper that it tells you to. I don't have one, so I'm just using this glass sort of pie tart dish, and because I'm not using parchment paper, I'm going to really heavily butter it so that we can cut slices out of it cleanly, because that's just what we got to do. So once you've done that, you can just set it aside and that's ready to go. I've also preheated the oven to 350 Fahrenheit. And now we're gonna chop our nuts. You can use any mixture of nuts you want, but I had almonds at home and I feel like that's probably the easiest to get your hands on. So we're gonna do 2.5 cups of almonds in the food processor. And we're just gonna pulse until it's pretty finely chopped with some like sandy bits. You want it to be, this is gonna be our crust. So when it's all said and done, we want it to be able to hold together firmly. All right, as you can see, this is about the texture of nut that we're going for. So there's some fine bits, some larger chunks, but for the most part, it's pretty finely ground. All right, so next up, we're just gonna add 6 tablespoons of sugar and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I measured that out before and actually mixed the two together, so we're just gonna add this mixture right in. And then again, just pulse a couple of times to get it incorporated. All right, so now that the sugar and the nuts are mixed, I'm gonna add 4 tablespoons of butter that I just melted in the microwave earlier while it's going on low speed. All right, so now that the butter has been added, you can just test to see if it will sort of loosely hold together. This, yeah, you can see the chunks are holding together, so we'll be able to press this into the tart pan and create a crust. And that's what we'll do next. All right, so we have our crust here, and we're just gonna pour it into whatever kind of dish that you have. And then, just with your fingers, we're gonna press it into sort of crust base for our tart. So you want to press firmly and try to work it up the sides if you can. It doesn't really matter if it goes perfectly up the sides, because when we pour the ganache on top, it will set into a firm texture, so the crust doesn't necessarily need to fully contain the chocolate mixture. But we do want to spend some time pressing so that it holds together nicely so that we can get clean slices once we bake. Alright, so that's our crust, which has been pressed nicely in, and we're going to bake that in a 350-degree oven for 20 to 25 minutes. So we have 12 ounces of bittersweet chocolate in this bowl, and this is sort of a do as I say, not as I do kind of situation, because I would really recommend using chopped chocolate, like a chopped bar of chocolate rather than chocolate chips, because chocolate chips actually have a higher melting point, so they might prove to be a little bit more difficult for these purposes, but I couldn't find any chocolate, so we're going to use chips. And we're just going to take a pint pint or 2 cups of heavy cream and bring it up to a simmer in this small saucepan. Alright, so this cream came up to a simmer, and so we're just going to pour it over the chocolate. And again, do as I say, not as I do. I would use a much larger bowl than this. This is the only bowl that we have right now, this little guy. So we're doing it, but just leave it to sit. Oh, I already spilled some. Leave that to sit for 5 minutes undisturbed and let the chocolate start to melt. So while this was sitting undisturbed for 5 minutes, I was cleaning this pot because we're going to use this as our vessel. So I'm going to do a little transfer maneuver and get all that good stuff out of this bowl, because we're going to need to do some stirring, so it just wasn't going to happen in this tiny bowl. And I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of room temperature butter that I sliced up into little cubes. You can't really see, but they're in cubes. And then we're just going to stir this until it gets fully melted and the ganache is looking nice and glossy. And this is all stuff that I'm doing while the crust is baking for the 20 minutes. By the time, there's about 5 more minutes on the timer for the crust. By the time that's up, this will be ready to go and we'll be able to finish off the tart. Are we rolling?
Yes.
All right, so it's been about 20 minutes, so I'm gonna pull out the crust. And as you can see, it's nice and golden brown around the edges. And this is our ganache topping, which is nice and glossy and smooth. So at this point, we are ready to pour the filling into the crust. Now there's a few bubbles, so I'm just gonna go in with an offset spatula and try to smooth some of this out. Doesn't really matter, but it'll make for a nicer finish. All right, so this is all hot right now, and we're going to transfer it directly into the fridge, uncovered, just as it is, and it'll set up. Okay, so it's been a little over an hour, and as you can see, the tart has set up nicely in the refrigerator. Nice and glossy on top, and we're just gonna do one little last thing, which is a sprinkle of flaky sea salt all over the top. And that's what really sort of makes this a special dessert, because you get that sweet and salty thing going on. All right, so that's it. This is the chocolate ganache tart, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, and welcome back. Now that you've made your tart, let's talk a little bit about how the music and the food can work together. As the piece begins, just take a moment to cut yourself a piece and look at the tart. Don't eat it yet. Let the music drop you into the sorrowful pit in which it lives. For me personally, this piece is all about the loss of love and the despair and hopelessness that comes along with it. At about 40 seconds, that's when the first melody comes in, and now is your time to let this wall of flavor wash over you. You can taste how the chocolate and this abundantly hopeless melody work perfectly, and how the crunch of the almonds is like a waltz that's slowly moving you forward. The melody seems to ask this question of why? Why me? And yet, somehow it always finds comfort in sorrow and despair. Now the whole piece isn't hopeless. There's a lot of moments where Chopin brings you on this flashback to happier times. And now's your time to think about the fact that chocolate isn't always dark and rich. Sometimes it's light and joyful and sweet. You can also play around with how the salt is interacting with the different tastes that you're experiencing. Unfortunately, these happy melodies always end up back at darkness. And now, at the end, he moves into this very depressing section, which at the end leaves you with this earth-shattering note that makes you realize that whatever you've been through, you're still right back at the beginning. We hope that you've enjoyed our pairing, and that hopefully you've experienced both chocolate and the music of Chopin in new ways. Please feel free to leave us some feedback so we know how to improve these pairings in the future. And if you enjoy what we're doing and want to further our mission, we'd encourage you to donate $1, $1.50. Anything really helps us to move forward with these videos. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you in a future pairing.